What's up, guys? It's Cassie and Sara, and today we're talking about the nightmare of John Wayne Gacy.
So if you like watching murder mysteries, make sure you hit that subscribe button and keep on watching. John Wayne Gacy was close to his mother and two sisters, but endured a difficult relationship with his father, an alcoholic who was physically abusive to his wife and children. His father also belittled him, calling him dumb and stupid, and comparing him unfavorably with his sisters. One of Gacy's earliest memories was being beaten with a leather belt for accidentally disarranging car engine components his father had assembled. His mother tried to shield him from his father's abuse, which only resulted in accusations that he was a sissy and a mama's boy who would probably grow up queer. Despite his mistreatment, Gacy still loved his father, but felt he was never good enough in his father's eyes. In 1949, Gacy's father was informed his son and another boy had been caught sexually fondling a young girl. His father whipped him with a razor strap as punishment. The same year, a family friend and contractor would sometimes molest Gacy in his truck. He never told his father about this, afraid that his father would blame him. Gacy was an overweight and unathletic child. Because of a heart condition, he was told to avoid all sports at school. During the 4th grade, he began to experience blackouts. He was hospitalized on occasion because of these episodes and also in 1957 for a burst appendix. Gacy later estimated that between the ages of 14 and 18, he had spent almost a year in hospital and attributed the decline of his grades to missing school. His father suspected these episodes were an effort to gain sympathy and attention and openly accused his son of faking the condition as Gacy laid in a hospital bed. Although his mother, sisters, and a few close friends never doubted his illness, Gacy's medical condition was never conclusively diagnosed.
Dang, this poor guy.
I know.
He just won his father's approval.
Yeah.
And his father's like,
no, you were a mama's boy, you're a sissy, you're
That's
probably
awful.
gonna grow up queer, like it said. So I felt like this was important to add because this definitely contributed to
his cuckoo-ness?
Yeah.
Definitely. And like, his father was like, oh, you're just faking like your heart problems and everything else you have. Like, dang, as he's laying in a hospital bed because he can't breathe or whatever, like, the issue was going on, like.
But I love how it was never conclusively diagnosed, though.
Yeah, but like, why wasn't it? So he also was having like blackouts at school.
Yeah.
As like a young boy.
That's really scary.
Isn't that like the beginning of having like some serious mental things when you just like black out and you don't remember what happened?
Like that could lead to like a bunch of things. Yeah.
That's sketchy.
Gacy murdered at least 33 young men and boys and buried 26 of them in the crawl space of his house. Gacy usually lured a lone victim to his house, although on more than one occasion Gacy also had what he called doubles, 2 victims killed in the same evening. Several victims were lured with the promise of a job with PDM, others with an offer of drink, drugs, or money for sex. His victims included people he knew and random individuals lured from Chicago's Greyhound bus station, Bughorse Square, or simply off the streets. Some victims were grabbed by force, others conned into believing Gacy was a policeman. Gacy typically murdered his victims by placing a rope tourniquet around their neck before progressively tightening the rope with a hammer handle. He referred to this act as the rope trick, frequently informing his captive, "This is the last trick." After death, Gacy usually stored the victims' bodies under his bed for up to 24 hours before burying his victim in the crawl space, where he periodically poured quicklime to hasten the decomposition of his victims. Some victims' bodies were taken to his garage and embalmed prior to their burial. That is like how he lured his victims and then like murdered them. And like if you're curious, PDM is his construction, which is like painting, decorating, and maintenance.
So that was his business.
Note.
Like that's how he kind of like
promised them jobs.
He killed a lot of people.
Yes.
And buried them under his house.
Yeah, in a crawl space.
Which is just like very small space under your house.
Yes, very.
But then he also embalmed some of them, which like why?
Before burying them.
Why? I don't know. Why not do it for all of them if you're gonna do it, and why just
maybe
do it in
some
general?
of them were more special. Like they gave him that feeling that some of them didn't. So he's like, I'm gonna keep you a little longer. Him like portraying a policeman.
Yeah, I think he did, like, a lot of things like that. So I know our title on this video is, like, Killer Clown, which I think he used... We didn't say it in this, but I think he used that as, like... I don't really know what he used that as, actually.
I think it was just, like, a way to...
seem more...
friendly. I don't think he used Pogo the Clown to, like, hurt people.
But it could have been a way to meet people, though.
Yeah,
like,
but...
at parties, you meet people that would be, like, your next victim.
On the evening of December 20th, Gacy drove to his lawyer's office in Park Ridge to attend a scheduled meeting to discuss the progress of his civil suit. On his arrival, Gacy appeared disheveled and immediately asked for an alcoholic drink. Gacy picked up a copy of the Daily Herald from his lawyer's desk, pointed to the front page article covering the disappearance of Robert Pice, and said, "This boy is dead. He's in a river." Gacy then proceeded to give a rambling confession that ran into the early hours of the following morning. After being informed that the police had found human remains in his crawl space and that he would now face murder charges, Gacy told officers he wanted to clear the air, adding he had known his arrest was inevitable since the previous evening, which he had spent on the couch in his lawyer's office. In the early morning hours of December 22nd, and in the presence of his lawyers, Gacy provided a formal statement in which he confessed to murdering approximately 30 young males, all of whom he claimed had entered his house willingly. He claimed all were teenage male runaways or male prostitutes, the majority of whom he had buried in his crawl space. Gacy claimed to have only dug 5 of the victims' graves in this location and had his employees dig the remaining trenches so that he would have graves available. In January 1979, he had planned to conceal the corpses even further by covering the entire crawl space with concrete.
But, like, I don't know how much they were already on to him, because, like, some stuff we didn't talk about, like, he did, like, rape some people and all of that stuff, so he was charged with sodomy.
Yeah, he has been to jail before.
But I don't know that they're like, oh, he murdered these people.
Yeah, I think he, like, let him off for, like, good behavior, because when he was in jail, he came up with, like, programs to help inmates.
So they let him out, and they probably didn't really think too much of it, but then he basically just was like spilled it all.
Yeah, because he was drunk. But like besides like the rope, like putting him in a crawl space or whatever and bombing him, he threw them off a bridge too.
Some of them into like a river or like a little lake area. I don't know that he's one of the smartest criminals that we've looked at.
No, oh god, no.
Just because he just screwed himself over.
Yeah. Gacy was brought to trial on February 6, 1980 and charged with 33 murders. He underwent a variety of psychological tests before a panel of psychiatrists and determined whether he was mentally competent to stand trial. Gacy attempted to convince the doctors that he had multiple personality disorder. The prosecutors presented the case that Gacy was sane and in full control of his actions. Those doctors refuted the defense doctors' claims of multiple personalities and insanity. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours and found Gacy guilty of 33 charges of murder. He was also found guilty of sexual assault and taking indecent liberties with a child. At the time, his conviction for 33 murders was the most for which any person in U.S. history had been convicted. In the sentencing phase of the trial, the jury deliberated for more than 2 hours before sentencing Gacy to death for each murder committed after the Illinois statute on capital punishment came into effect in June 1977. His execution was set for June 2, 1980, but due to some appeals on Gacy's part, his execution date was pushed back to May 9, 1994. On the morning of May 9, 1994, Gacy was transferred from the Menard Correctional Center to Statesville Correctional Center in Crest Hill to be executed. Before the execution began, the chemicals used for the execution solidified unexpectedly, clogging the IV tube used to administer the chemicals into Gacy's arm, complicating the procedure. Blinds covering the window through which witnesses observed the execution were drawn. The execution team replaced the clogged tube, and after 10 minutes, the blinds were reopened and the execution resumed. The entire procedure took 18 minutes. According to published reports, Gacy was a diagnosed psychopath who did not express any remorse for his crimes. His final statement to his lawyer before his execution was that killing him would not compensate for the loss of others, and that the state was murdering him. His final spoken words were reported to be, "Kiss my ass."
He was trying to convince the doctors that he had multiple personality disorder, which I mean
could be
Could be, but I think that they would have noticed it, like, because with multiple personality disorder, like, it's like a switch that's flipped, you know? And so, like, there's ways that they would find to trigger that.
Yeah.
And if they didn't find anything,
then,
you know. But they did say that he was diagnosed as a psychopath.
Yes.
Which I can believe. If he had no remorse, he was doing this to young men and children, basically. And then at the end, he was like, just because you're murdering me doesn't
compensate
for what I did, like, who cares?
So kiss my ass.
Yeah.
But, like, he also, like, tried everything in his power to push back.
Yeah, to get out of it.
Execution, or,
which
like,
is like, my guy, you gave yourself up.
There's no
going back.
Yeah.
The chemical, like, the tube got clogged.
So, I think there was, like, a theory or something that, like, somebody was, like,
trying to keep him alive. Yeah, so we did leave out, like, a good chunk of stuff, but it would have made the video super, super long, and you can kind of get the idea of who he was and, like, what he did with what we gave you. If you want to go look up more, there's, like, more into, like, some of the assaults and things like that, and more into his, like, first arrest. Yeah, I think that's really it for our story. Let us know down below. Yeah, let us know down below kind of what you think about what we gave you. Like, do you think that John Wayne Gacy was, like, super smart? Do you think he purposely gave himself up? Or
do you think his father might be the main reason why? Just follow our social media down below in the description.
Make sure you like, subscribe.
Hit that post notification bell.
Lets you know when we post and if we post. Sometimes
do all those beautiful things.
Yeah. We will see you guys next Friday. Peace!